And he said, if you gave yourself a year to go all in on the jewelry and it didn't work out, what would be your worst case scenario? And she said, I don't know, I'd go back to teaching. I might not be able to get the same job, but I've been a teacher for a decade, so I know I can get a job. And he said, great. How does it feel to wake up every day and live in your worst case scenario? And that's the moment I truly had pulled the car over on Route 287 in New Jersey. I was hysterical crying. I texted Mike. I said, I can't do this anymore. So I recently asked on my social media accounts, what do you want to hear from me? And this question really stood out to me. She wrote in and said, I'd love to hear more about what makes it worth it for me. What do I love about my leap into entrepreneurship? What makes it worth it? Really, truly, in the gratitudes that I do have for what we have created, what makes it worth it is you. And it's the ripple effect, which is part of our mission at Digital Business Evolution. So simply by you showing up in your life in a different way, simply the way that you carry yourself, your emotional intelligence, your ability to have difficult conversations, your desire and craving to go after your dreams and actually take action on those things, you putting yourself out there, you doing the work, you reading books, investing in yourselves, listening to podcasts. Like when you do all of those things, other people see and feel just who you are and who you're becoming, and then they slowly start to pick up on those things. So for me, I mean, that's what makes it worth it. It's any little tiny thing that can get carried on and passed down for generations to come that is totally worth it. And in the context of what I do and what we teach here at DBE is social media marketing and digital business building and running a company and scaling a team. And so the sheer fact that I get to help you build your business in any niche that you want, then you go and help people in that particular niche as you are as a service provider. So for me, it's everything is worth it. The long hours, the tough nights, the crying over technology, the frustration, the difficult conversations, all of the things that have happened that I've been gifted the opportunity to move through and grow through over the years, that makes the juice worth the squeeze 10 times over. So that's my true and honest answer. It's seeing what you do and then how you affect other people. What do I love about my leap into entrepreneurship is I never sought out to be an entrepreneur. I did not grow up in a family of entrepreneurs. I had wanted to be a PT since I was about 10, got into grad school, and my first year I was like, wow, this actually is not what I want to do. For me, I went through a quarter life crisis when I dropped out of my DPT program. I worked in the fashion industry for a little while, but I didn't feel that that was something I should do either. Went back into full-time personal training, writing for magazines and doing fitness competitions and sort of building that part of my business when my parents had lovingly encouraged me to get a teaching degree to quote unquote fall back on as sort of plan B or C. And it was at that time now in my mid-20s that I said, all right, this is ridiculous. All my friends are living in apartments, they're all getting promoted, and I'm still bouncing around from school to school. That's when I decided to go be a teacher. I was teaching full-time. I found myself grasping and reaching and looking for things to fulfill what I felt was empty. But I love teaching, I still do. I'm obsessed with my kids. It was the best, and yet I still felt really unfulfilled. And in an effort to search for stuff to fulfill me and the voids that I felt in my life, I ended up creating all of these little side hustles. Again, I wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur. I just had space. I got out of work early and I just needed to fill that gap of time. I'm very much a doer and I love helping people and I love teaching. And I was already working as a trainer nights and weekends after school as a teacher. I was also working as a high school gymnastics coach on nights and weekends after school. And so it just felt very natural to start creating all these little pockets. And so what really started as, I wish I had a community of women who were going through what I was going through. So I created one on Facebook. It ended up kind of going viral. This was in 2014 and 700 women ended up joining this free Facebook group. And then I found my purpose in supporting them and carrying them and giving them ideas and free resources, but just for fun. I wasn't monetizing it. And that's where I had created my first kind of real little business, which was called Fit Trips, Friendship Inspired Training. And the idea here was a play off of field trips. And I always used to feel like, why don't we have field trips as adults? So I created this thing that I ran for 4 years where every single month I'd bring women on a field trip. And it was a fitness-based field trip where we would do a fitness class and brunch. And we'd do prizes and giveaways, and all the tickets, the proceeds from the tickets would go to charity. And then Shape magazine saw us and they wrote a whole article about it. And then once it went from that, it grew. And then every month for 4 years, we had 75 to 100 women month after month after month. But still, I never thought that it could be anything. But all around the same time, 2013, I got involved in network marketing. And again, it was just sort of, I'm interested in doing this thing. This is fun. I'm filling my time. And oh, cool. If I make a little bit of money on the side, I can help pay the bills. What inspired me to dig in really was the one single thing that I heard on a podcast the day that I decided to quit my job. And that was in October of 2016. When I was driving to work listening to this podcast, this man was interviewing a woman and she was a teacher and she sold jewelry on Etsy. Don't forget, I also was selling jewelry. I went to fashion school. I was literally doing the exact same thing. I was a teacher selling jewelry, hosting fitness field trips for fun. And he said, if you gave yourself a year to go all in on the jewelry and it didn't work out, what would be your worst case scenario? And she said, I don't know, I'd go back to teaching. I might not be able to get the same job, but I've been a teacher for a decade, so I know I can get a job. And he said, great. How does it feel to wake up every day and live in your worst case scenario? And that's the moment I truly had pulled the car over on Route 287 in New Jersey. I was hysterical crying. I texted Mike. I said, I can't do this anymore. That was the night that I decided to quit. And it was just a couple weeks later that I walked in and I resigned. That's the moment that really changed everything for me. And what inspired me to dig in was watching other people do it. Watching people that I knew, watching people that I didn't know, watching people who I felt maybe had less experience than me, right? Sometimes that can irk us, that bothers us. We get annoyed, we're resentful. Like, I have more certifications, I have more experience. But what if you reframe the way you look at that? For me, it was like, I have more experience, I have more certifications, I have more fill in the blank, and this person's doing it. This person's doing something that I would like to do. That's incredible evidence that it's possible. And so all of these things inspired me. What keeps me motivated to help other people follow their dream? It's not about me. It's never been about me. And that's interesting to say when you're a personal brand and you're the face of the brand. It's about you, and it's about the people that I'm helping, and it's about you overcoming your own fears and getting out of your way and those limiting beliefs and those imposter. It's about you setting up the systems in your business and trying it in a way that feels good for you and understanding the process. It's about you creating content and you helping people and you asking questions. I come up against those things too, of self-doubt or imposter. And so in the moments that happens, I get to remind myself, this has nothing to do with me. There was a coach I worked with back in 2018. I had been following her for years, from YouTube to Instagram. She finally posted that she was doing a mastermind, that I hit the requirement. It was the right timing. I wanted to join. It was $25,000. So I joined, and we were at the retreat in person. There were about 10 of us sitting around, and it came up in conversation somehow that I admittedly had never once commented on any of her posts. I had been following her for years. I had never commented on a single post. I had never DM'd her. I had never reshared her stuff. I binged her stuff. I binged her content, her podcast, her YouTube, her Instagram, but I never shared. I never liked. I never commented. Not for any reason. I just was watching silently in the back, sort of waiting for her to put out an invitation or an offer to something that I wanted. And when she did, it was like, here's my credit card. So to her, I came out of nowhere. But to me, I'm like, I've been following you since 2015. It's been 4 years of me waiting for you to put something out. Funny thing was, every single girl in the room said the exact same thing. So there were 10 of us that paid $25,000 for a mastermind, and none of us had even spoken to this girl before. That is happening in your audience every single day. It doesn't matter the size of your audience, what you talk about, what you sell. You have silent listeners. You've got people in the back who are watching your every move, and you're changing their life every single day, whether you know it or not. And this is the ripple effect. That's the stuff that gets me motivated. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you. Just to answer the last part of this, on the line of like, what keeps me motivated and excited and going, that doesn't have to do with I make my own hours or I get the freedom or the time or the money or whatever. I think there's a huge element of life is a game. I see it as a game now. I didn't before, or I did, but I thought the only way to win was to have the awards and the accolades and the money and the credibility and the good job and the high five. I think a lot of us can relate to that. And what I've learned over the years and what I'm still learning is that I'm worthy regardless of those things. So in I think it was 2003-ish, when I checked myself into outpatient therapy, that was really the first time that I raised my hand and said, I need help. I need help. I don't know how to do this. I can't do this anymore. And it was in that moment that asking for help saved my life. And then in 2014, I hired my first business coach. And it was like these little breadcrumbs of every time I ask for help, every time I get in a room that makes me uncomfortable, I grow. And that's the game. With the game of life and the game of business, we write the rules. And so if you don't like how the game is being played, you get to rewrite the rules. And if I keep falling into the swamp at the same part of the game, it's like, well, why don't I just change that? And what if I change the way that I can quote unquote win the game? So instead of having to complete the board or get a certain amount of points or get accolades, what if the game, the winning of the game, is just having fun along the way, is collecting people and building relationships? I've really changed the way that I approach life. I've changed the way that I approach business. And what I would say is my favorite part of entrepreneurship is that it exposes parts of yourself that otherwise could be very easily overlooked or avoided. So yes, to answer your question, I am obsessed with the time freedom, the location freedom, the career freedom, the financial freedom, the creative freedom. Learn how to use the tools so that you can then come up with your own way to recreate and reinvent and reimagine the way that the tools are used. That's how I see entrepreneurship. And for me, while you don't want this answer, you cannot put a price on the life that we get to create, Mike and I together. I'm so grateful every single day when we walk the dog in the middle of the day. We prioritize certain areas. We put things in our life in buckets like we all do. And so for me, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not a label girl. I don't like expensive clothing, but experiences Mike and I are into. And this is our priority. There's nothing right or wrong with it. Being able to go home last summer, have an apartment on the other side of the country so that we could spend time with our friends and our family back home and make memories with those loved ones, that is far more important for us, right? That's our value system. It's like the small, seemingly insignificant moments for us that make entrepreneurship worth it. But for in the inside world, in the core here, it's just, we get to create our life. And I'll leave you with this. I used to think that the word pivot was a really negative thing. Oh my God, she pivoted again. She quit. For a really long time, I felt that I was a quitter. And over the years, as we named the company Digital Business Evolution, I realized I'm not pivoting, I'm evolving. I'm evolving into a new version of myself. So anyway, as you grow and evolve, so will your business, so will your relationships, so will your ability to have difficult conversations, so will how you react to things, so will how you see things. And that's why we named the company DBE, because we're always evolving and growing. And as we grow and evolve, so does our business. So as always, my friends, on that, cheers to our evolution.